At Toastmasters, we provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Through this mission, each Toastmaster gains a clear understanding of the club's purpose, and the organization as a whole benefits from a shared set of values and goals. Please help me welcome our Thought and Pledge leader for this evening, Mr. Charlie Bombalier.
Our thought for tonight is, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. By George Bernard Shaw. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that, please help me welcome our President, Charlie Bombalier. Thank you all who have shown up here. It seems that tonight, since there's not enough members here, we cannot do the officer voting, so we're going to postpone it until next week. And we're going to try to get enough people at least to show up and do the voting. Also, I don't know if you're aware that Tony has not been able to come, even though she's back from vacation, because her mother took ill again, and she's really in serious condition in the hospital. It started out as some kind of bladder infection, but it's progressing worse. She's never going to send her home, but I don't think she's home yet.
Tony said that she's feeling better today.
Oh, she is today? Good.
Today.
Well, that's good. She's a tough lady, I'll say that. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Hey, Sarah.
Welcome.
There you go. Wait one. Oh, yeah, she's a speaker. Yeah. Go evaluate. I'm an evaluator.
He is.
I do have written down here, but is there any business that anyone needs to bring up right now? Stephen, would it be possible, is it that we get a get well card or flowers or anything for Tony's mom through our club?
Absolutely, we can all pitch in.
Or we can all pitch in?
Somebody bring one and have it all signed or something?
I was gonna do that and I forgot it today.
Okay.
And
All right, then. Good. We can't get everybody during the week, so it'll have to be next week. Although this Sunday,
she canceled the birthday
she
party.
canceled it again, right? Then we'll try to do it for next week, if things are okay.
I have
Yes,
I don't know about the banquet. It is scheduled for 24.
I called her, but she wasn't available today. She never called me back.
No, I was wondering if anyone is the banquet master and if we started, organize it somehow.
Say that again.
To start organizing.
Oh, we can do that, yeah.
Yeah, but no one, I'm sorry, I missed a few meetings. So I don't know
We never
if anyone-
discussed
That's why we signed you up for
Discussed
banquet
it.
master.
Yeah.
So you're allowed.
Yeah, I think that's what, the only thing that was discussed is you were gonna be banquet master.
I'm sorry I asked.
No,
But
we
we'll-
should do that. I think we should.
We'll bring that up at the end of the meeting then,
Okay.
and see if we can get some people qualified. At this time, I'd like to introduce you our Toastmaster for tonight. He's been around Toastmasters for a few years, in and out, but lately he's been in a lot. So please help me welcome our Toastmasters for this evening, Charlie Bombalier. Thank you, thank you. Less than 48 hours ago, actually, many Americans celebrated Memorial Day. And since we're that close to it, that's what I thought I'd bring up a little bit about Memorial Day. Unfortunately, too many Americans have no clue that Memorial Day is a day of remembrance for those who have died in service of the United States of America. For these ignorant and clueless people, they think it's an opportunity to party hardy, use drugs, alcohol, and many ended up dead, like in Baltimore this weekend, 29 shot, 9 killed. Chicago was 56 people were shot, 12 killed. And that's to name only a couple. There were several other states that perished because of absolute negligence on their part to be responsible citizens. Over 2 dozen cities and towns actually claim to be the birthplace of Memorial Day. While Waterloo, New York was officially declared the birthplace of Memorial Day by President Lyndon Johnson in May 1966, it's difficult to prove conclusively the origin of the day. Funny how all these federal holidays are overplayed, and so many people neglect to really, when they're celebrating it, to actually even think about the reasons that we're having. I did hear a university, I believe it was in Virginia, but I can't swear to it, that the students there decided to celebrate Memorial Day and respect the soldiers that have died for our country. So they took, in the dining room, they took a table and put a plate, and they put a rose, a red rose. They put salt for the tears that were shed for that soldier's death. They put a glass of wine upside down for the toast that he will never do again. And there was something else, and I just can't recall this minute. But it was really a nice gesture for the dead soldiers that died for us. I thought that was great. Moving on with our agenda, let's go through the functionary roles. The out counter is Stephen Block, and he said he's on his way. So we'll kind of leave that open at this time because I don't think we picked anyone.
Let me get the forms first.
Oh, okay. Okay. We're gonna give Micki a couple minutes to get the functionary roles. Alan, what other role did you have?
I am the timer and the tabletop manager.
Tabletop, okay.
And actually, before we get started, for our 2 speakers tonight, Maureen.
Is yours supposed to be 5 to 7 minutes? Okay. And then Sarah, how about yours? Is yours the same?
No, mine you'll need to write down 3 different times. There's 3 sections. My speech is 4 to 5 minutes. And that's one section. And you restart the clock, and there's a 3 to 5 minute role play. Then the 3rd section is 2 to 3 minutes of discussion with the audience. So I have to meet the times for each of those 3 in order to qualify. Because there could be gaps between them if I have to set a couple chairs up, so you don't want to just have the clock running for the 10 minutes.
Do you need any help with your
I
problem?
would just need 2 chairs at the point where I do the role play after my first speech.
What do you want 'em
that-
at?
Thank you. Just right in the middle of the room so people can
Facing the
see
crowd?
us. Yeah, but
This
opposite
massive
each
crowd
other.
that we have here. Okay.
Steven's volunteered, so I'm going to be speaking with him, so I need to face Steven's.
Facing each other?
Yes.
Okay,
Maybe a bit slanted to the audience. Thank you.
okay, no problem. Okay, we're gonna skip the odd counter for now. Could we have the functionary report, grammarian, Cece, please?
As grammarian, I have two basic responsibilities. First is to provide a word of the day to my fellow Toastmasters and guests in order to expand our vocabulary. I have chosen the word of the day, which is valiant, which is spelled V-A-L-I-E-N-T, valiant. If you have an opportunity to speak, please do your best to use the word valiant. I will keep track of those who use the word of the day. Those who do not use the word of the day, I will fine you 25 cents. Guests and members who have not yet given their icebreaker speech will not be fined. I will also listen for colorful imagery and use of exceptional vocabulary and grammar. And I will suggest improvements in grammar as needed. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Cece.
Sorry.
Yes,
Was I supposed to give the meeting?
Yes.
The word? Skip that. Okay. Valiant, it's an adjective, can be used as an adjective. The meaning is having or showing courage or determination, possessing or acting with bravery or boldness, very brave or courageous. Used in a sentence, she made a valiant effort to hold her anger in check. Or another sentence in use of Memorial Day theme. This national holiday may also be the unofficial start of the summer season, but all Americans can take a moment to remember the sacrifice of our valiant military service members, first responders, and their family. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
thank you. Supervisor of Elections, Micki Dudmisku.
As vote counter, I will pick up your ballots for best speaker, best table topic speaker, best evaluator, and most improved speaker. I will tally the results for award presentations at the end of the meeting. I will also pick up any comments you might have written for the speakers or any meeting participant and deliver the comments to the appropriate person. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. And last but not least, Alan, would you tell us about the functions of a timer?
Yes. This evening, I'm going to be making a valiant effort to be both table topics master and timer. So my job as timer is to make sure that all the speakers are speaking for the appropriate times. And to qualify, the speakers must speak not less than 30 seconds under the range minimum and not more than 30 seconds over the range maximum. Our two speakers tonight, Maureen and Martin, will be speaking for 5 to 7 minutes. Sarah Hunt will be speaking 4 to 5 minutes with a setup time for part 2 from 3 to 5 minutes, and then for part 3, 2 to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Maureen, did you give me an introduction? Did you write one?
No,
Okay.
you can make a point.
For our first speaker, her speech title is Justice Was Served, out of Competent Communicator, what project number is that?
Number 3.
3.
Number 3 is our brave and valiant Maureen Martin, giving her third speech
Well, it's not 3. There's an error in the book, and I'll show you. It's supposed to be number 2.
Second
All right.
speech, project 3.
Okay, second speech, project
Yes.
3. Please help me welcome Maureen Martin.
Toastmaster. Sorry. You don't have to let him do his off, just, it's okay?
No.
Steve? Yeah, this isn't the time, not until you start speaking. No worries.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Maureen Martin, and I'm going to try very hard to be valiant with my speech. Alright. I was hurt. I did not get mad. I got even, and I said, I decided to take matters into my own hands, and justice will be served. It was a Monday afternoon. I was at work at my desk. My manager came over and asked me for my brother. It was unusual because he wasn't a friend of my brother. I was wondering why he was asking. I said, well, he's at home. It so happened about an hour after, who walked into my office? My brother. For some reason, he was going about his business. He came by my office to drop something out. Next thing I know, they called my brother over and said they was going to call the police. I had no clue what was going on. I was lost. I'm like, why? Of course, they called the police, had my brother arrested, took him to the police station. And that was when I realized that Saturday, of course I do not work on a Saturday, but that Saturday, a friend of my brother's who came into town had a check that he wanted to get cash. Of course, he knew my brother. He took him to my place of business and decided that he wanted to take this check, cash. This guy, Joshie, as they call him, this check was about $5,000, and they changed the check, cashed the check. Joshie went about his business back into the city, and so I didn't know anything about this. So when my brother walked in, that was when I realized that the check had bounced. So, not knowing, I'm like, what are we going to do now? Because my brother is now arrested for something that he didn't do. They called the police. I talked to the detectives and figured out what we're going to do at this moment, because now my brother is in jail. He told us what we were supposed to do. They had a hearing because now they're going to find out what charges they're going to give to my brother. While there, they called in the courthouse, the judge say what was going to happen. I went in and the judge said, okay, I'm here, it's my brother. Your brother is here because of, this, he was an accessory of the case, what had happened. He said, okay, I understand it's not your brother who actually did this. Can you find the person who did this to your brother? I said, yes, Your Honor. And he said, if you can find this person, bring him to me, your brother will be released. I went into town, didn't have any money. I thought I had like $100, which is not US dollars, Jamaican dollars. My younger brother, my brother's girlfriend, and my stepmother decided that we were going to go into the city to find this guy, Joshie. I had no clue what Joshie looked like, but I tell myself I was going to find him and bring him back to St. Thomas. Okay, we got a ride, went to the city. While we were walking on the roadside, God must have, it was a miracle. My younger brother was like, there he is, that was Josh. And I'm like, oh my God, this is really a miracle. So I went up to him, started talking, and from what I understand, Joshie can talk. And I started talking to Joshie, talking to him, but what happened now, we have to figure out how we're gonna get the police to arrest him. So I walked away and told my brother, said, listen, you all go to the police station, tell him we have Joshua, and tell him what happened. While he was there talking to Joshua, my brother and them went to the police station. By the time we got up to this crossroads, the detectives came, and my brother went like, there he is. Joshy took off running. And we were like, oh my God, we're dead. Because now Joshy's gonna get away. And the police officer took after him. And my brother is there, shoot him, officer, shoot him. And, luckily, the police ran him down and caught him. So they took him back to the police, down to the jail. When we got to the police station, we found out Joshy had all these charges, a rap sheet. The police were looking for Joshy, couldn't find him. And here, this country girl came into the city, found Joshy. And I was like, okay, you know what? Try not to let him up because, he's this bad person. So they had to take him up back into the place where we stole the money with a check. The next day, they took him to the station to have him locked up. We went back to the court, and the judge was like, he couldn't believe it. He was like, okay, they had the hearing, and the judge said, you know what, son, you're free, go home. Just like that, my brother. So, my brother was free because he spent a few days in jail, but that was it. I was happy because he was going to go to jail for something that he wasn't, guilty of. The only thing is that he went with Joshy up to the counter, and I think he took the check from Joshy, and that's how they said if he didn't hold the check, then it would have been an accessory. So after that, knowing that I worked with these people and they didn't come to me and tell me, well, this happened and why I was so upset, they could have gotten their money back if they hadn't took my brother to get him locked up, because my brother could have well gone back to Josh and said, okay, this happened, that happened, you need to bring the money back. But because I didn't, they lost everything. So I figured my brother is free, they didn't get the money back, so justice was served. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Cece. Over 2 dozen cities and towns claim to be the birthplace of Memorial Day. Regardless of the exact date or location of its origin, one thing is clear. Memorial Day was born out of the Civil War and the desire to honor our dead. Actually, it was originally proclaimed on May 5th, 1868 by General John Logan, National Commander of the Grand Army of the Republic. In its General Order number 11, the 30th of May, 1868 is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of our country during this late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city. The date of Decoration Day, as was originally called, was chosen because it was not at the anniversary of any particular battle. On the first Decoration Day, General James Garfield made his speech at Arlington National Cemetery, and 5,000 people participated and decorated the graves of over 20,000 Union and Confederate soldiers buried there. Do you have an introduction?
Yes.
Thank you. The next speaker will deliver a 4 to 5 minute speech about the coaching process. Following this talk, there will be a role play for 3 to 5 minutes with one of our fellow Toastmasters demonstrating the skills that were discussed. Stephen Morgan has volunteered to role play with our speaker and will be coached to improve performance. This role play has not been rehearsed. For everyone else in the audience, please pay careful attention to the role play, as there will be a 2 to 3 minutes informal discussion regarding the effectiveness of this coaching. So let's begin by giving a warm welcome to our speaker this evening, Sarah Hunt.
Do you know someone that just does not come through when it comes to things that they're expected and supposed to do? I know I have. I may have been one of those people. Could you improve? I know, examining my life, there's many things I could get better. Looking at this club, for example, maybe one of the leadership roles could be performing better. Maybe a member of your team at work could be doing better, whether it's turning in reports, communicating better, or it could be one of your family members. Maybe it's a child that just doesn't do their chores. Is it making the bed, taking the trash out, bringing the dishes to the sink? All that substandard performance is ripening for coaching. Coaching can be informal, or it can be more formal, where people pay money to have someone help them improve some area of their life. I'm going to share with you briefly the how-tos of coaching. There's 2 main benefits of getting coached. The first one is productivity can soar through the roof. When you have someone that's guiding and looking at solutions and following up with you, you can see that increase in productivity. And the second reason is you just feel plain good about yourself. Don't you feel good when you know you've done your best? And that trickles and follows through to all the members of your team, if it's a workplace performance issue, or even in the family where people may not be pulling their weight. It could also improve in that area as well. There's 4 barriers that are usual problems of why someone needs coaching. One of them is they just don't have time. They're busy, they're overwhelmed, overworked, and time seems to be a barrier. Another area is equipment. Do they have the right resources? I almost came unglued with my 7-year-old. Make the bed. And how many times do you see the sheets just stuck to the bottom, the duvets hanging off the edge, and it's made? And I'm like, this is substandard performance. And then I realized, well, he's this big, and I have to reach on tiptoes to go get his cover, because his bed's this high, it's jammed against the wall, and I realized he doesn't have the tools to even make the beds. He needs some height. All he needed was a step stool. Other equipment could be something such as software. If someone doesn't know how to use a program that they need to run reports to get a piece of work done, that would fall under the equipment and resources. Another area would be motivation. That can be a barrier. Sometimes you just don't feel like it. I don't get the credit, the praise. My attitude's in the toilet, why bother? And they just need some momentum. And a coach can provide that. So there's some of the reasons that a coach would be needed to help. So there'll be a role play in a minute. And what I'm going to go through, I want you to pay attention to this process, because a coach will find out one of those problems. What is it that's going on? And discuss the situation with the person, and then look at the impact. The person needs to know, how is this affecting people in your area, at work, or if it's the household? How does the impact really resonate with them? Do they see it? And then a key piece is finding solutions. A coach may not have all the answers to the problem. They might guide through experience, but usually with some questioning, the person may come to some solutions themselves. But the key is that you have to agree upon the solutions, and then set some type of follow-up. Nothing worse than having this grand old plan, yep, go get them, and you're on your own, and see ya, and there's no follow-through. So there needs to be some follow-up with that person to see, how's that bed making going, Dominic? How you doing? I need to go check every day. And I also need to praise him to make sure that he recognizes when he's got it right. Or if I have an employee at work whose report just comes in late every single month, but then it starts coming in on time every single month. I need to recognize that, and a coach does that same thing. All right, so I'm going to set 2 chairs up, and Stephen is our volunteer. He has no idea what the scenario is, but I will let him know now.
The likeness.
You're going to reset for the second section of the time.
What do you want?
I think this way is, it's right here, so it's, all right, so put that on. Stephen is our Vice President of Membership. And there's an area of that position that's just not good enough. And I've been brought in as a coach to find out what's going on and see if we can improve it. Hey, Stephen, thank you for meeting with me.
Certainly.
It's good to see you again. I'm very pleased first to make sure that you know that taking on a leadership role does take quite a bit of time and commitment. And it's just wonderful that you've dedicated that. In the responsibilities of the VP of Membership, there's just one area that's come to my attention that I'd like to give some feedback. If that's okay. Yeah?
Sure. Let me have it.
Got 2 new members, lovely ladies. Cece and Maureen are our newest members, and they've turned their applications in, and it's been weeks and weeks. So I think there's a gap between actually getting their applications headquarters. And the impact this has on the club and these 2 ladies, without that application getting in, they don't get their manuals, and they don't get that wonderful magazine, the Toastmaster magazine. So it slows down that ability for them to get going on that first speech and getting fully immersed in the club. And I just wouldn't want to lose them due to some of our slip-ups. Is there anything going on that I could help you with in terms of getting that in on time?
Well, I do know that it took a little bit of time. One of the applications had gotten lost. Then I had to figure out how to log into the website, because I had to log into the website before I could put in the information for the application details. But then, even once the application's in, they have to be paid, and I don't do that. That's actually the treasurer who has to do that. So we've got this handoff process that has to happen.
Do you have any ideas how we can get that money piece worked out? It seems like the treasurer's role needs to connect with the VP of Membership.
Yeah, we have to find some way of making sure that the check ends up with the treasurer and the application gets turned in. Maybe it should be me putting that information in, or maybe I should have the treasurer actually put the information in. It's been done in different ways at different times, and every time the officer changed, that responsibility ends up shifting to who understands it better.
That does sound confusing. So it sounds like you'd be the first point of contact when someone hands you the application.
Should be, yes.
Would it be a good suggestion or an idea as maybe a first action is to immediately connect with the secretary, I'm sorry, the treasurer, to make sure I need that person's role to communicate and follow up so we can speed it up?
And if the treasurer's not there?
I think we need to look at our resources of our phone log, of phone numbers, email, so you
yes,
do that,
do that.
maybe electronically. Would that work?
If the answer, if they don't get lost in that, or hidden by spam or something like that.
That wouldn't work. It sounds like maybe multiple sort of email responses and happen maybe within 2 days would be reasonable. Maybe a phone call, a text.
Yeah.
And even when we
It'd
see
be
each other in the
helpful-
club.
I think it'd be helpful if there was also another officer probably that can double check, make sure. The president would be the obvious one.
Yeah, sure, extra layer. So how about we make that our first step. When we get a new member, that you, within one day, could you reach out any way you choose with your contacts information, whether it's in person or using your phone sheet, to the treasurer and see if that speeds it up. And we'll check back maybe in 4 weeks, see how that's going.
Yes, that's certainly what we're like.
That's fantastic. Well, I can praise you again for taking this leadership role. And any other types of snafus, or you feel like you're stalling and there's no momentum and there's some kind of backlog, you let me know and we'll work through that. All right. Well, thanks, Stephen. So I have 2 minutes. It sometimes turns into like an evaluation, that's fine, but just feedback or comments about that coaching process. Did I miss something that I should have been honing in on or not identifying? Any feedback from the audience? Again,
I
just
just
2
gotta go, what
minutes.
was your fourth? You had timing, equipment, motivation, but I missed the fourth one.
The fourth one is, if I did mention it, it's knowing your expectations of the job, knowing what you're supposed to do. Many times people just don't have a job description, or they say, make the bed, and make the bed to one person is just throw the cover on and it looks good. So really knowing what your role is. If Stephen just, if you're vice president membership and he missed training and he's stumbling along, that's usually a barrier for someone not performing well. They just don't know what they're supposed to do. And coaching can help clarify what their role is. Thank you. That was an oversight.
What's the difference between coaching and instructing?
I think instructing, you wouldn't have the involvement from, or any participation from the person that you're working with. I could just sit Stephen down and say, you're a VP of membership, you're not getting these applications in on time, Cece and Maureen don't have anything, they're just floundering around waiting in space. Here's what I need you to do. Every time you get an application, you need to get that done in one day, and maybe just give them some how-tos and not really listen to what's going on. That's instructing someone, as opposed to coaching is digging deeper and finding out, boy, Stephen offered a piece of information that I had no idea about, that role of treasurer being involved and what that link was in putting information into the system. Anything else that you can observe or have questions with?
Not speech related, but how come they can't use their credit card directly?
Who?
Anybody signing up? Because it would streamline the process.
Only the officers have the ability to pay,
Well, why don't we expand the ability?
because we don't control the website.
Toastmasters International does.
As long as it's not in our control.
Yep.
Green light. That's a great conclusion, Sarah. Ding me on that. All right, well, thank you. Thanks so much.
On the first decoration day, I don't even know if I read this already, James Garfield made a speech at Arlington, I did see it, Arlington Cemetery. The first state to officially recognize the holiday was New York in 1873. By 1890, it was recognized by all northern states. The South, meanwhile, refused to acknowledge the day, honoring their dead on separate days into after World War I, when the holiday changed from honoring just those who died fighting in the Civil War to honoring Americans who died fighting in any war. It is now observed in almost every state on the last Monday in May, with congressional passage on the National Holiday Act of 1971. Did you give me an introduction, Mark?
Alan?
No, I'm general evaluator. Alan.
I'm sorry, yeah, table topics.
We need a timer's report for the speaker.
Yeah.
Yes, timer's report, please.
Yes, okay. Our two speakers, Maureen.
Martin?
Timer's report, our first speaker, Maureen Martin. Her required time was 5 to 7 minutes. Her actual time was 6 minutes and 27 seconds. She qualified. Sarah Hunt, in her 3-part speech, her first part was required for 6 minutes. She spoke for 4:53. She qualified for part 1. Part 2 was for 3 to 5 minutes. Her actual time was 4 minutes and 14 seconds. She qualified for part 2. And her third part was for 2 to 3 minutes. She spoke for 2 minutes and 13 seconds. So she qualified for all 3.
Alan is one of those young men that disappeared for a while, but thankfully we got him back. Even though there was some talk about the treasurer not being here and you haven't paid your dues yet, but I'm sure it's going to happen next week.
We're hoping so, Charlie. So.
Please help me welcome.
Excuse me, we need to vote for the best speaker
We already took the time.
so I can do my job.
You can do your job.
So I can do my job.
Okay, let's introduce our great table topics for tonight, Mr. Alan Master.
Thank you, Charlie. And doubling up as the table topics master and the timer
I can
report. Oh, okay, sure. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. All right. Memorial Day, federal holiday in our country for us to remember the people who have died while serving our country in our forces. So, who shall I pick on today? How about Roy?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I haven't actually gave it yet, so.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Could you tell us why Memorial Day or Memorial Day weekend is important to you?
Fellow Toastmasters, guests who are not here. Memorial Day weekend is actually very important to me for a variety of reasons, and two come to mind, top of my mind. First and foremost, I have family members who have served in the military, including both my grandfathers, my sister, my brother-in-law. So when you have somebody in the family who serves in the military, I think you kind of keep that close to heart, and you truly see and recognize their sacrifices and all they do for our country. You may not necessarily believe in everything and every reason that we go to war for, but you can't discount the service and the sacrifice that our service members provide for our country and the things they do for us. Second, my grandfather's birthday was over Memorial Day weekend. So as a child growing up, I remember going over to my grandparents' house Memorial Day weekend. It was always a bash, cousins, aunts, uncles, all the family members would be over there. We'd barbecue, we'd hang out by the pool, and that was just always a great time and great memories from that point going forward. Third, my birthday is actually June 2nd, so it's a triple whammy for me, even though my grandfather's passed. But those memories will always kind of linger as I get older, and those are great memories and great times growing up. Mr. Tabletop is
All right. Stephen B. What is your favorite or least favorite Memorial Day memory?
I'll try to answer both. By the way, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I'll try to make a valiant attempt to answer both. My least favorite Memorial Day experience, I probably don't remember. It is probably one of the days when I decided to come into work. to get some productivity done. My most favorite Memorial Day weekend experience is probably going to the beach, hanging out with friends. Recently, I've been going to Lucky Swim. I was there this Memorial Day weekend. It was nice because I got to complete 2 crossings, which is the usual count. I should be standing up here and giving the same speech that everybody gives about how wonderful our troops are, which they are, how important it is to remember them, which it is important to remember them. The one thing I do want to add to everything that's said as generic is every day they're important. They're out of the military fighting for us every day. A lot of them need our support when they get out of the military, and a lot of them have contributed towards our well-being. For the most part, it's hard to appreciate what you have until it's gone. I learned through a recent layoff at work. With our troops, it's the same thing. It's one thing to stand up and talk about how wonderful they are and how patriotic you are. It's another thing to resort to actions which speak louder than words. I would encourage you not only to think about our troops on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and specific holidays, but think about them all the time. Thank you, Mr. Tabletop.
Susan, tell us about someone you remember for a heroic effort or sacrifice he or she made for our country.
I'd have to say it would be my dad. My dad was in the Navy during Korea, and he served feeding the troops. He was on a ship that brought all the supplies to all the troops out in Korea and out in Hawaii and wherever they were. He was making sure to bring, he wasn't, but the whole military, that it was his job, was in there. And then he switched into medical. And he did not work on the front lines, but what he did work on was people that came back from the war and their bones were broken, and he worked with the orthopedists and learned how to set bones and do all this kind of stuff. And he knew his Navy buddies until the day he died. And I just think that is the greatest thing, and I respect that he was able to serve and did it with so much honesty and everything that you do when you're in the military. Mr. Tabletop.
Roughly 1 million men and women have died in self-defense of the U.S. since our inception in late 1700s. They suffered and sacrificed all so that we can enjoy our freedom. Cece, give us an example of how you understand and enjoy the value of freedom.
Thank you, Mr. Tabletop Master. I appreciate that question. What comes to mind when I think about the value of freedom is the opportunity to voice my opinion, not only the opinion, but the freedom of assembly, the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the freedom of gathering, and to also able to vote and to exercise our rights. And not only that is the feeling that you come across when you walk around and feel with your brothers and sisters, not only with your loved ones, but as well as with your friends, black, whites, Indians, whatever ethnicity that you are of. And just the gathering of the unity, I'm able to appreciate that and to think about the peace that we are all in. I know there are wars and fights in other countries as well as civil. There are fights among us, but just thinking that, or comparing ourselves in the United States of America as opposed to the external countries, there's a big difference. So I do appreciate living in America, and that gives me not only the sense of solidarity, but the sense of appreciation for all mankind. Thank you, Mr.
Micki, now that you're back, tell us about a time that you honored the memory of a fallen hero.
If you allow me to have another glass of wine, I may be able to. I'm not going to talk about a fallen hero. I'm going to talk about one that is still alive. And you don't expect this. It is, I admired and appreciate his sacrifice very much. It's Mikhail Gorbachev, the president of former Federation of Russia, whatever states. He sacrificed his career and his freedom because he believed in democracy, and he agreed to let the Russian states become independent, and instead of being under communism regime. Now Putin is trying to bring back all the states under his strong hand. I don't know if it's possible or not. Hopefully not. But in 1989, this major political move happened. Russian states became independent. Gorbachev sacrificed his freedom because he was arrested for this. And I had the honor a couple of years ago to shake his hand when he was here in Orlando to give a speech at a seminar. Thank you.
Stephen Maureen, what do you feel is the best way to spend Memorial Day and why?
Mr. Table Topics Master, let me give you a story that you can use for Memorial Day. Since it's supposed to be about those who have fallen in defense of the country. One man that was in the Air Force, a pilot in the Air Force, and served over Vietnam. And he had always wanted to be a pilot, although as a young kid, he had these really big, thick glasses. It was like no chance he would ever be able to. He got lucky. As he grew older, his eyesight got better. When he served in Vietnam, he was one of those who would be flying the jets, they'd be dropping the bombs. He got shot down over Vietnam. He had to eject out of his plane. He got lucky in that he managed to land in safe zone or recovered. I didn't hear the whole part of that story. And went on to continue flying and bombing in Vietnam. Although for the rest of his life, he ended up with, as a result of the ejection, his vertebrae had been impacted and he had very difficult time sleeping because it was very uncomfortable, and sometimes would end up sleeping on the floor. After Vietnam, he ended up staying in the Air Force and was training others in the jets. he was in Utah at one of the bases out there because he loved the mountains, the skiing in particular, and of course he loved flying the jets. But it was on a particular evening that they were doing one of their routine patrols. His plane crashed and he was killed. He's buried now at Arlington, and I've seen the grave several times. And although you don't get to meet some of the people that you get to treasure for their valiant sacrifices, sometimes you do get to see the results of what they've done, because you have met some of those results. That pilot was Richard Dean Anderson, and you've met his grandson, Richard Anderson Morgan. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Our general evaluator this evening was U.S.
Again,
Marine.
time report.
Oh, yes, okay. Could my assistant?
Roy, why Memorial Day is important. 1 minute and 18 seconds, he qualifies. Stephen B., Memorial Day memory is 2 minutes and 5 seconds, he qualifies. Susan Morgan, tell us someone you know, 1 minute and 36 seconds, she qualifies. Cece, the value of freedom, 1 minute and 35 seconds, she qualifies. Micki, fallen hero in Mikhail Gorbachev, the Russian Russia, 1 minute and 58 seconds, she qualifies. And Stephen Morgan, the pilot grandson survival story, 2 minutes and 14 seconds, he qualifies. Every speaker qualifies for table talks.
All right. Our general evaluator this evening was U.S. Marine. He was a squad leader during Operation Desert Storm and also spent 3 years in training in Okinawa, Japan, where he instructed fellow Marines in the use of the M16 assault rifle and the 9mm service pistol. During his 8 years in active duty, he reached the rank of sergeant and was awarded several medals, including the Navy Achievement Medal and Kuwait Liberation Medal. His grandfather was a deputy marshal, and his father served in the Air Force. Two of his stepbrothers, one a crew chief for the Army Apache helicopters, and the other an Air Force Russian translator, both served service with him in Desert Storm. And his son, just 2 days ago, left for Air Force basic training in San Antonio, Texas. Memorial Day definitely has a special meaning in his family. He will always appreciate and honor the sacrifices of our servicemen and women make in their lives so that we can enjoy ours. Please welcome one of the few, the proud, Mark Tucker.
Thank you, Alan. We have now entered into the evaluation portion of the meeting, where our speech evaluators will come up and give some positive feedback and words of encouragement for our two speakers this evening. Our first evaluator, 9 years ago, Valentine's Day, she was dragged to Toastmasters kicking and screaming by her wonderful husband. She was even terrified to say her name, let alone give an icebreaker speech. Now, 9 years later, not only did she give her icebreaker, but all the other speeches and requirements to obtain her distinguished Toastmaster. Evaluations played a huge role in helping this Toastmaster to achieve her goals. Please help me welcome distinguished Toastmaster Susan Morgan.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening, and especially Maureen. This was such a great speech. I really loved it, I have to say right off the bat. You did some really good things right away. You came out with your speech and said, I was hurt, but I didn't get mad. But I was going to take matters into my own hand and make sure that justice was served, which was your speech title. And you carried that through your whole speech. That was done really well. the middle of your speech was about the meat of it, about what happened. Your brother had come in on your day off and was thought he was helping a friend. And that ended up not being the case. And then you went to court, he got arrested, you went to court, the judge said, "Can you find him?" And you said, "I don't know what he looks like, but yeah, I'll find him." And you did. So this whole story was really well done. You had a lot of great characters in it. And I loved in the middle part where you found Joshy and said, "Shoot him, shoot him." I can understand that feeling. The only things that I have to offer you as far as suggestions are that, number one, the pacing could be a little better. You could be a little bit more slow, have a few more pauses maybe in the speech, like, "I was hurt, but I didn't get mad. I'm going to take matters into my own hands." Something like that with a little bit of dramatic pause might really work out for that speech. The other thing that I thought you could work on is the characters were so wonderful and we wanted to know more about the characters. Maybe give them a little dialogue. You know, what did your brother say to you? What did the judge, well, you did say what the judge said, but a few of those kinds of things would have been really well done too. Girl, you didn't use notes. You had some notes with you, but you didn't use them. That was wonderful. That is a great job at that. I just really loved this speech. I thought that you did an excellent job with everything, and I can't wait to hear the next one. And we'll see if it's number 1 or number 3 or number 2 or number 4. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Susan. Now, in an amazing turn of events, the man who has been evaluated at least 6 or 7 times, but never reciprocated, now makes his debut as evaluator. Please put your hands together and stomp your feet, but not too loudly because we are in a retirement center, for Roy Whitting.
Good evening, everyone. Could you improve? Maybe it's the British accent, but I feel like Sarah Hunt always delivers the goods. She's always cool, calm, and collect up on the stage. I thought it was a great job. It was a very interesting and entertaining speech. I've never seen anything before like that, although I haven't been doing this forever, but it was very unique, very entertaining. A couple takeaways I had. First, let's start with some of the positive notes. I thought it was a great introduction to attract the audience's attention. Sarah asked the question, do you know someone who never seems to come through? And I even though I'm an evaluator, my head kind of spun up and I'm like, she's not talking about me, is she? So I had to continue to listen on and make sure that she wasn't specifically talking about me and go from there. And she asked very good questions to kind of open. Let's see here. Hand gestures. I can literally watch Sarah speak listen to Sarah speak by watching her hands. Very good hand gestures. A couple of things that I noted, this or that. Very good hand gestures indicating height. I think the little boy was this tall, not this tall, but this tall, and having a hard time making the bed. A couple of areas I noticed or I'd recommend to improve upon. And as part of the introduction, I think you spent a lot of time on 2 main reasons why people want to improve, and also the 4 barriers as to why they may be underperforming. And you could have touched a little bit more on the precise coaching process. I think there were 9 steps. I know you touched on most of them. You did a great job. I think you probably touched on 5 or 6 of them, but maybe spend a little more time step by step on how the coaching process works from front to back. And second, towards the conclusion, one of the things I would recommend, it seemed like we were all kind of frozen. So I would have recommended maybe having a couple questions that you could leave with the audience or ask, try to prolong the ending a little bit more, try to generate a little bit more discussion around that point. And last, I think you touched on it, was closing out strong. I think the green light, you saw the green light and bailed, so I don't know if it's yellow, but. So just a couple areas that I noticed, some recommendations I have to improve, but overall I thought it was an amazing job, a very entertaining speech. I think that we would all agree we'd be very lucky to have Sarah as our coach. It was a very impressive and valiant effort. Thank you very much. Great job, Sarah.
Thank you, Roy, for stealing my thunder. I was going to say valiant job by both of our evaluators. I think that still counts as using the word today, though. At this time, can we get a timer's report for our 2 evaluators, Ellen?
First evaluator, Morgan, spoke for 3 minutes and 6 seconds, qualified. Second evaluator, Roy, spoke for 2 minutes and 41 seconds. Everybody qualifies.
Okay, at this time, please vote for best evaluator. And at this time, I will call for functionary reports. First, we will hear from Stephen Block, our counter. Can you give us a review?
Thank you. Maureen, I scored 10 things that are most double clutches, the things I noted, down to 5,000, repeated twice, and get good. Charlie, I guess that's what for me. Charlie, there are 2 ofs. I don't know if they count as bridge words. I counted them 2. Sarah actually did a good job. I had a high count just because, higher count because it was longer. I wouldn't say it's high. I had 5. There were a lot of things where you didn't particularly have any that fell in the category, but you had a word that you could stretch out while you were buying time to think. I don't know if that counts as an on. Steve, I counted 2 double clutches, 2 likes, and so's for 4. Alan did perfect. Roy, there was 1 double clutch, 2 likes, and so's, probably ends, for a total of 3. Susan, total of 4. 1 of them was double clutch, the others were the word and. Cece, I counted 10. There were a lot of I's, but I guess you're new, so you'll get better over time. Micki, I counted 7. Steve Morgan, only 2 when you spoke. Susan, I guess is the highest count. There were 16, but most of them were in the bridge words category, so you probably used the word and a lot. I didn't remember it. Mark did perfect. Roy had a lot of so's. Your count was 12. It's 3 double clutches and 3 I's. That's my count. Thank you, Mr.
Cece, if you could please give us our grammarian report, how did we do?
Okay, I was able to catch the following individuals who used the word of the day, valiant. They were Alan, Maureen, Roy, Stephen Block, and Mark. And I'm sorry if I missed anyone. The colorful words or phrases that I was able to catch was from Maureen. I love when she said, I had no clue who Joshie looked like. Also, shoot the officer. I like that. Also, I like when she said, here is this country girl. Sarah, I almost caught unglued. That's very graphic. And my attitude in the toilet, that was colorful. Roy, close to heart. I like that phrase. Also, when he mentioned about his experience for the Memorial Day holiday, he mentioned family, beach, pool, barbecue, those brought family structure and happiness to me. Stephen Block, how wonderful our troops are. Not only he sounded warm in his voice, but it sounded rather cool to me.
Thank you.
Susan, she spoke of her dad, and she also mentioned about the soldiers' bones were broken and what your dad was engaged in helping the soldiers. Micki, that was really funny when you said, if you allow me to get another glass of wine.
Right.
And also loved when she said the Russian ruler Mikhail Gorbachev. That sounded really smoothly to me. Stephen, the fallen soldiers and story of the pilot grandson. And I think this is about all that I caught as far as colorful language. Thank you.
At this time, we'd also like you to vote for the most improved Toastmaster. And Sarah, just to clarify what Cece said about the colorful phrase attitude in the toilet, she wasn't referring to your toilet being colorful, but the phrase itself was colorful.
Water closet.
The loo, thank you.
Now,
Right from the my
as general evaluator, I took notes there throughout the meeting, so I would like to go over them with you now. First of all, your Sergeant at Arms did an outstanding job setting up the room. So, good job to him this evening. The meeting started on time at 6:45, and Sarah entered the room at 6:48. I don't know why I wrote that down, but I just wrote that down.
How late was I?
I don't know, but I'm going to get to you in 1 second. Alan stepped up for a double roll, so that was good for him and good for us that he did that. And also, Charlie announced the changes in the agenda, so we could all make the adjustments accordingly. Now, for Stephen Block. When the gavel goes down at 6:45, just as a general rule, we would like everyone to consider this door as being locked and enter and exit from the back door, just to cause as little minimal interruption to the speakers as possible. Sometimes it gets pretty harrowing up here, and we try to minimize the distraction. So from now on, anybody, and that goes to anybody, if you're going to have to leave the room for any reason, or if you show up late, please kindly just come in and out through the back door to cause less of a distraction. We were missing the introduction for the first speaker, and the introduction for the second speaker came a little bit late. Also, Charlie, I don't know if this was inadvertent or not, but we didn't give 60 seconds after each speaker for the club to write the reviews and comments for the speakers. That's important. Cece, good catch on making sure that you gave us the definition and meaning of the word of the day. I had started to write that down that you didn't do that, but good job catching that. Toastmasters gives us the opportunity not only to practice our speaking, but this is also time for us to practice our leadership and organizational skills. So let's keep that in mind next week when we show up. We have agendas that we can follow. There are outlines on Toastmasters, or those of us that have been Toastmaster, General Evaluator, or Evaluators have scripts that they follow. So let's go ahead and do that. If you are in a speaking role, make sure you get your introduction to the Toastmaster, preferably before the day of the meeting. Evaluators, make sure you give your introductions to the General Evaluator with advance notice. Table topics, give your introduction to the Toastmaster, and General Evaluator, give your introduction to the Toastmaster as well. Other than that, I thought we made a valiant effort at having a good meeting this evening, and it was not a substandard performance. I thought we pulled it off, so kudos to everybody. And with that, I would like to turn this back over and introduce Charlie Bombalier.
Thank you, Mark. I need to take a minute right here, because I can't find our regular sheet, to give roles for next week. Is there any speakers for next week? Anyone who wants to speak? Stephen?
Steve Law.
I'm going to put, because she requested that I do it, Tony wanted to speak, so things are possible with her and her mom. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that's
put
going
it
to be
out.
a tentative for sure.
What's that?
That's very tentative, I'm sure.
Yeah, so maybe
Is
we'll
that
get a
just-
backup.
Is that just two?
That's
I'm
just
sorry?
two.
So I'll plan on speaking two, and then
Okay.
if she's unable, we'll at least have two.
Okay. Okay. Anyone for Toastmaster?
What's the theme for next week?
What's what?
Is there a theme for next week?
No, Toastmaster picks that.
I don't do Toastmaster.
You will? Okay. What do we need here now? We need two evaluators for now.
You need table topics?
Table topics, you want to do table topics? I'll be an evaluator, I'll put myself down. Anyone else wants to be an evaluator? Alan? Come on, give it a shot.
All right. I'll make a valiant effort to do my best.
Too late. Still intense.
Anyone for timer? Sarah, would you like to be timer?
Yes, I think I'll be there, I'm not sure. We're down for now. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, Lisa.
I have a question in terms of timer. If we don't have enough functionaries during some of our sessions, is there a way to automate the timing?
You
That's
just
right.
take
Not
out
for
the
free.
grammarian or the off counter.
Right, somebody will do it. Somebody just do a couple different functions.
The timer is one of the most
Yes.
important.
I thought I had placed my name on, there was a sheet going around last week. Do you still have that? I don't recall. I may have placed my name on it, I'm not sure.
You know what, I think this reminded me where it was. And actually,
If not, then.
no, that's not it.
Oh,
No, I don't have enough sheet, this is 27th, as far as this goes.
that's annoying.
Would you like to do a function, what did you write it for?
I believe it may have been timer, I'm not sure. There's someone else has it there.
I don't have, or Sarah's gonna do timer, but would you rather do timer? Sarah will do something else.
Yeah, I'll do
You
anything.
don't mind?
I'll do anything you need.
Okay, we'll put you,
I'm sorry, who's doing our counter?
who,
Our counter, who's doing our?
I don't have it, I don't have our counter yet.
Do you want to do?
I can do all count, it's fine.
So you have a grammarian
For all
already?
count.
You wanna be our counter?
Yeah. Or we can do that
Not yet.
for next.
Okay, I'll do the grammarian.
Sarah, you're back. I'm sorry?
I'll do the grammarian if you don't have time.
Mary? Okay.
Oh, Mark.
All count.
Am I missing anything? So, vote counter. That's what it is. I need a vote counter. Susan!
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be here next week.
Oh, you guys are not gonna be here?
No.
I can do both?
We can do that on a second.
Yeah, we will leave that on, so that's not a big deal. Okay.
Grammarian. Can
Okay,
I? No.
that's good. And, wow, we gotta get people here so we can, Stephen, how far can we go without the elections? You guys are not gonna be here, and we got a smaller crowd next week.
We
because
have
Tony
to
may
have
not-
the names in by July 1st.
They have to be by July 1st?
Yes,
Okay, so we do have a little bit of
To
leeway.
draft people.
A little bit.
Are these like 4-month positions or 6-month positions?
6 months.
6 months.
Okay.
I make a
July
motion
through
to renew
December.
the exact same position.
Is there any business that needs to be brought up? Micki, did you do several of the, excuse me,
Yes.
and we're gonna order the ballots, the voting?
I will do that. I make copies of your words and the words.
We have plenty of ballots, though.
We do have plenty still?
Yeah.
Okay. Someone told me we're short, that's why I asked that.
Do we have the liberty to make our own ballots, or we handed these?
No. No, I don't know.
I
I'm
think
not sure.
we can make our own.
Well, the reason I'm asking is the order does not correspond with the order that we actually vote on.
Right.
Just some random order that just makes no sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense. to
But
me.
you have all day, all meeting to take them apart.
Oh,
If you guys
most
hear on
clubs
time-
actually start with table topics. In that case, they'd be in the correct order. That's why it's that way.
Yeah, it's
If not, just take
weird
them
that
apart
a lot
before
of
the meeting.
clubs do table topics versus.
I'm just thinking, would it make sense for them to match if we have a choice? You know, if we have no choice, it's.
Oh, yeah, you could do your own if you wanted.
I
We
would-
have some that are bigger that you can write more
Yeah.
on it.
I'd like
but-
my own. Can I bring my own custom ballots, or do we have?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And now, do we have, you said we have bigger ones already?
Somewhere,
I have, actually, I have
They're not
samples
ballots,
of
they're
them at home.
feedback
I
sheets.
do
the
have-
feedback sheets we
Yeah.
have.
I'll bring a couple of those and glad to see them.
All right, thanks.
And you're more than welcome to make your own.
We need electronic ones of our cell phones, so I'll write it down to it afterwards.
For those people without cell phones?
And we
Well,
can
then
use those
you don't get
voting
to
things
vote.
like on America's Funniest
Yeah,
Home
right,
Videos.
right.
You have to have an Android also, Apple doesn't count.
We need music though during that time.
Not going there.
Apple crashed.
Somebody in here works
Okay,
for Apple.
it is time now. Is there any other business?
Just, do you want to bring up the district?
Yes.
this weekend?
It's too late to sign
It's
up.
this weekend. Yes, this Sunday,
Friday and
Friday and
Saturday.
Saturday.
right. What time is it? Does anybody know the time? Starts
It
Saturday?
starts at like about 5.
The dinners typically start at 6.
You want to be there early. They open up the registration at 3.
Yeah, something like
Oh, okay.
So you
For
can
the-
be there at 3, but you can come anytime after that.
that, if you've already registered.
The dinner generally, generally the dinner starts around 6.
Process starts at 6.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to be there, even though I really want to go there, because we're going to Fort Lauderdale to see my
Grandbaby.
6-month-old granddaughter.
Yeah. That's more important.
And I haven't seen her in over
Tiny
2.5 months.
Oh my
So I'm
gosh.
getting itchy to see her
Yeah.
and spoil her some. Okay, it's time for the awards. Yes?
Yes.
The Tim Chastain Award, because someone that's not even a member yet took 2 major roles today. I want to congratulate Mr. Alan Lamphere.
$1 off. Valiant effort.
Plus, we're going to charge you for the certificate.
Most Improved Award tonight goes to a very certain person, Maureen Martin. Thank you. For the Best Table Topic Award, Cece Ward. And for our Best Evaluator Award, Roy Whitty.
you very much.
Did I do another or Richmond?
You did an excellent job.
I just walked.
And last but not least, our best speaker award, Sarah Hunt. 24 reasons why you deserve this.
Not one, everyone voted for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, meeting adjourned.